number 3 in Africa on on-chain weighted transaction volume. In the last 1 year, Kenya traded $2 billion in decentralized protocols, liquidity aggregation, and synthetic platforms this year, Honorable Speaker. We have approximately 6.1 million users who use EV capabilities, chain tokens, bridges, wrapped BTCs, gas abstracted stablecoins, and ZK roll-up deployment, Honorable Speaker. We have a potential in this space to generate at least $1 billion in terms of foreign direct investment. With the passage of this law, Honorable Speaker, this law has a potential to create at least 25,000 jobs in Kenya in the next 1 year, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we look forward to this new technology, blockchain technology, tokenization, being used to solve one of the challenges we have in this country, Honorable Speaker, like budgetary allocation, Honorable Speaker. The control of budget estimates that we have approximately 550 billion shillings worth of pending bills. Honorable Speaker, I look forward to when this can be tokenized, and we have people across Kenya and globally, Honorable Speaker, contribute to this particular space without having to constrain the exchequer, given the limited physical space we have, Honorable Speaker, on our budget. The question then is, Honorable Speaker, what are we doing as a nation to embrace this novel innovation in finance that the world is already embracing? Well, at the very least, if this House considers and passes this bill, Kenya will now be the 4th country in Africa to do so by maintaining our progressive spirit of building Kenya to be the Silicon Savannah. Honorable Speaker, virtual assets are digital representation of value that are created. Usually by mining, they are traded or transferred in digital sphere, often using the blockchain or other forms of distributed ledger technologies, simply known as DLTs. Their uses are many. They can be used as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account, as a store of value, or even for investment purposes with specific digital ecosystems and across broader financial systems, depending on their structure and application. So, Honorable Speaker, then with the question begs, should we regulate these assets? Honorable Speaker, Kenya has witnessed a remarkable rise in cryptocurrency adoption, with over 10 million citizens now holding one form of a digital asset or another. There is a significant engagement in peer-to-peer cryptocurrency trading, which has earned Kenya a top position in the global ranking for trading volume and leading position in overall cryptocurrency activity, according to China Analysis Global Crypto Adoption Index of 2023. Honorable Speaker, this growth demonstrates a substantial interest in participation in digital assets, especially amongst young Kenyans, those showcasing the sector's potential within the economy. Over the first few years, our traditional financial regulators, particularly the central bank, the Capital Markets Authority, have over time adopted a cautious stance towards virtual assets. For instance, in both 2015 and 2022, the central bank issued a cautionary notice to financial institutions against engaging with cryptocurrencies, stating that they are not recognized as legal tender. But, Mr. Speaker, here we are realizing that burying our heads in the sand is not tenable anymore. In this regard, the National Treasury now has prepared this bill before us, which was sponsored by the Leader of Majority. Honorable Speaker, when I was elected during my first term in 2017 into this Honorable House, in 2018, it was on record, I raised a question to the then Governor of Central Bank of Kenya, asking what measures is Central Bank and National Treasury doing to prepare themselves on this issue of Bitcoins, blockchain technology, and cryptocurrency, Honorable Speaker. The response from the then Central Bank Governor said that cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, digital assets were passing clouds, was a fad that will fade away. I am happy that at Kenya now we have seen it is no longer a fad that's going to fade away. Digital assets, Bitcoins, blockchain technology, cryptos, and all that space, including Ethereum and stable coins and all that space, Honorable Speaker, on digital assets, is no longer a fad that's fading away. The reality is now here with us. The scope of this bill, Honorable Speaker, is designated to regulate all persons or entities who are engaging in offering virtual asset services within or from Kenya. This will apply to companies incorporated under Kenyan law or foreign companies duly recognized under the Companies Act and which are licensed to provide virtual assets as defined in the bill in the first schedule. However, this will deliberately exclude certain categories of digital representation to avoid overregulation or financial or non-financial purely utilized-based digital products. Exempted from this bill and act, if passed by this Honorable House, are digital representations that function solely within a closed ecosystem, such as in-game currencies that cannot be transferred, exchange for fiat money, or traded outside the issuer's platform, as well as central bank-issued digital currencies. Certain non-fungible tokens not used for payment or investment purposes, and other digital representations expressly excluded by the relevant authority, Honorable Speaker. This the bill, Honorable Speaker, carefully defines the scope and ensures that only those virtual assets activities posing financial, consumer, or systematic risks fall under the regulatory oversight. This is done while preserving innovation and limiting unnecessary regulation burden on other digital technologies. This focus, Honorable Speaker, is particularly relevant given past incidences in Kenya, where the lack of regulation in virtual asset space has exposed consumers to harm and loss. To give an example, Honorable Speaker, thousands of Kenyans were affected by the collapse of cryptocurrency platform Bitstream Cycle in 2023. Investors lost millions of shillings from this platform when it was abruptly shut down without warning. Bitstream Cycle had operated without any regulatory oversight, promising high returns through digital currency investments, yet it was neither licensed nor monitored by any Kenyan authority. Such cases highlight the dangers of unregulated virtual assets services and demonstrates the need for clear legal framework like the one the bill is introducing to make sure we safeguard the funds of the members of the public. Any person or entity intending to engage in virtual assets must now formally apply to the relevant authority, either through the Capital Markets Authority, the Central Bank of Kenya, and the new entity this bill is proposing to create, the Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority, Honorable Speaker. This bill will form strong emphasis on the prevention and management of conflict of interest among licensed virtual asset providers, which we call VASPs. Under this bill, VASPs are required to establish and maintain effective internal policies and procedures designed to identify, to mitigate, and manage potential actual conflict of interest that may arise, for example, and are required to report this to the authority and the regulator, Honorable Speaker. Virtual assets, Honorable Speaker, that simultaneously acts as a broker for their client must clearly separate those roles to avoid manipulating trade outcomes on its advantages. And where conflicts are unavoidable, Honorable Speaker, they will be required to report to the authority. This bill is going to impose enforcement action for contravening any of the provisions of this law, including fines, Honorable Speaker, that are clearly defined in the schedules provided, Honorable Speaker, as per our report. This bill is providing a clear mechanism, Honorable Speaker, for appeal. So where you go to apply for a license to the regulator and you're not issued with a license, then this bill provides for not just timelines for when the regulator must respond to you on what documents are required, on whether or not you're going to be issued with a license or not, but also provides timelines, Honorable Speaker, for when they're supposed to issue licenses. This, Honorable Speaker, is meant to cure where this Honorable House has passed laws that would require, for example, particular entities or authorities to license entities, but those entities take years before they are issued with a license, Honorable Speaker. In addition, Honorable Speaker, the bill is also providing for the Cabinet Secretary to issue further regulations. Because from experience, Honorable Speaker, such new entity we may not be able to capture everything that's needed for it in law. And therefore, we are now requiring, Honorable Speaker, within 6 months, that the Cabinet Secretary must issue regulations, Honorable Speaker, to further regulate this particular sector, Honorable Speaker. One of the most significant advantages that we're going to experience with blockchain technology is its decentralized nature. Unlike, Honorable Speaker, traditional financial systems that rely on central authorities, blockchain operates on a distributed ledger maintained by a network of nodes. This decentralization reduces the risk of single points of failure and enhances the security and resilience of financial systems. Kraken, for example, one of the global leaders, has partnered with DeFi Development Corp to tokenize shares on the Solana blockchain, which is demonstrating the potential of decentralized finance to integrate traditional assets in the blockchain ecosystems. Mr. Speaker, I am hoping that this bill will make this reality in Kenya. Blockchain transparency is another critical feature that is that sets it apart from conventional financial systems. Honorable Speaker, every transaction on a blockchain is recorded on a public ledger, which can be audited by anyone. This transparency helps to build trust among users and reduces the potential for fraud and corruption. By tokenizing government securities, platforms like Coinbase can provide real-time visibility into the ownership, the transfer of these assets, and therefore enhance trust and accountability. I hope one day we get to be a country where we can use these particular entities, Honorable Speaker, to safeguard even our public assets. Honorable Speaker, things like the faking and the issuing of duplicate title deeds, Honorable Speaker, can be easily resolved using blockchain technology, where any attempt to change title deed, Honorable Speaker, of any particular property can easily be notified. No, it can easily be detected because it will be impossible to do so using, Honorable Speaker, the blockchain technology that exists. The immutability of blockchain records ensure that once a transaction is recorded, it cannot be altered or deleted. This feature is very crucial in maintaining the integrity of financial records and prevents tampering. Soon, we will need to discuss amending our land network, Honorable Speaker, having our procurement laws and our procurement processes use blockchain technology so that we ensure that the fraud that is used, Honorable Speaker, in our procurement systems is not done. And this is possible using blockchain technology. This legislation is to democratize access to investment opportunities through access to tokenized investment tools. By breaking down assets into smaller, more affordable units, tokenization allows a broader range of investors to participate in markets that are previously inaccessible. Honorable Speaker, for example, for utilization, it will therefore now be possible for Kenyans across the economic, Honorable Speaker, to own part of that property and gain, Honorable Speaker, profit from that particular interest, Honorable Speaker. For now, for you to buy a piece of land, you probably need to buy a 50 by 100 or 1 acre or 1 hectare, whatever it is, Honorable Speaker. But using tokenization, it is possible to have this land being accessible to young people in this country, Honorable Speaker, through those small units and have them get a considerable return, Honorable Speaker, on the investment. The efficiency of this blockchain is another compelling advantage that as a country we should tap to. Traditional financial transactions often involve multiple intermediaries, leading to delays and increased costs. Honorable Speaker, it will be important to remind ourselves how, for example, the blockchain technology and, for example, the Bitcoin was launched. During the financial system breakdown in the US, Honorable Speaker, we had banks in the need to compete to issue mortgages, issued mortgages to almost every American. And consequently, what happened, the cost of those houses, considering the force of demand and supply, the price of those houses fell lower than the mortgage amount that was mortgaged to these particular institutions. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, this led to the collapse of the entire financial system in the United States of America, Honorable Speaker. And this is what now these young people who are accountants, financial analysts, and computer scientists wondered, how can we preserve value for assets without necessarily, Honorable Speaker, having to use intermediaries? This particular technology that we're talking about, this digital assets, Honorable Speaker, is now providing that space, where you will no longer need an intermediate, Honorable Speaker, to store value for your asset. And Honorable Speaker is going to reduce all the fraud that occurs in that particular space, Honorable Speaker. This technology will support development for what we call smart contracts, which are self-executing contracts with the terms of the agreement directly written into a code. Smart contracts can automate various financial processes and reduce the need for manual intervention and minimize the risk of human error. As we style ourselves as a Silicon Valley, we need to enable this framework, Honorable Speaker, and this is our opportunity. Honorable Speaker, one of the issues that we see, matters of litigation across the country, is in terms of contracts that are not being honored. Now, using this technology, Honorable Speaker, we can have smart contracts, Honorable Speaker, that get to mature and whatever is supposed to be executed is executed through technology, Honorable Speaker, without having to have any human intervention, and therefore this will even reduce the litigation that goes around in our court system, Honorable Speaker, for unhonored contracts. I don't want to belabor the point anymore, but let me underscore that the potential for innovation in blockchain technology is vast and will create immense opportunities for our economy, including creation of jobs. As the opportunity continues to evolve, new applications and use cases are emerging. For example, the integration of blockchain with other technologies such as artificial intelligence and Internet of Things are creating new opportunities for financial innovation, and as a nation, we should not be left behind. This regulatory framework landscape, Honorable Speaker, for blockchain and virtual assets is evolving. Now, governments and regulatory bodies increasingly recognize the potential use of these technologies. In Africa, as I said, we'll be the 4th nation to pass this law. And I call upon this House to support the bill and the amendments that this committee is going to bring to the House. Honorable Speaker, One Wall Street CEO, Jamie Dimon, said that the blockchain is a financial challenge of our time. It is going to change the way our financial world operates. A few years ago, Honorable Speaker, few people sat and discussed the creation of M-Pesa. And the then Vodacom, Honorable Speaker, said, it is impossible. Everyone uses bank, relies on the banking system, and we cannot have money being transferred through phones. Apart from a few people who were in that room, the likes of Michael Joseph and others that improve on that technology said, no, it is possible. A few young Kenyans were tasked to create that platform. And now, much more money is traded, is exchanged on M-Pesa than any other financial system in Kenya. Blockchain technology, virtual assets, is the new M-Pesa. A lot of transactions globally are not now happening through the traditional banking systems. They're not happening through mobile exchanges. They're happening through virtual assets. And I hope and pray that this Honorable House will make Kenya to lead so that we attract FDI for institutions to come up and set up in Kenya and expand to the rest of Africa, making Kenya the Silicon Valley of virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. Let us not be scared of new technologies. Let us not be afraid of these new technologies. Let's embrace them, let's promote them, let's support them, and make sure that you are not left behind by the rest of the world. With those many remarks, I beg to move and request my senior, the leader of Majority Party, and the great member for the great people of Kikuyu constituency to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second this virtual assets service providers bill, and has been ably moved by the chair of the Finance and National Planning Committee that considered this bill. Honorable Speaker, as you have said, Kenya is indeed a beacon of innovation and growth in Africa in the sector of financial services. And indeed, as the chair has alluded, M-Pesa is such one example of financial inclusion services in the financial services sector, where Kenya has not just become a beacon of innovation, but became a focus point for the entire world. Even before the Americas, the Silicon Valley, and India and other countries moved into mobile money transfers, Kenya led the way, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we cannot afford to be left behind in the space of virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, it is important, Honorable Speaker, that we have a legal framework that will form the basis of regulation or the regulatory work of the virtual assets themselves, the regulation of virtual assets systems, and also the service providers of virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Kenya has witnessed increased adoption and use of virtual assets, particularly in payments and investments over the years. And these assets present very good opportunities to promote digital finance, boost commerce, especially e-commerce, and even create a new class of digital jobs, Honorable Speaker, and our young, innovative young men and women in our universities and those graduating from our middle-level technical colleges and technology colleges have an opportunity to explore the digital jobs that come with this virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, the benefits of these virtual assets have also been challenged by cybersecurity risks, data privacy risks, fraud, and scams in the country. Honorable Speaker, the best case example is a WorldCoin episode about, was it a year or 2 years ago? Remember, Honorable Speaker, the hula baloo that was there at KICC with WorldCoin and Bitcoin. But Honorable Speaker, those are the challenges that will come with these virtual assets. Questions that touch on not just cybersecurity, but also data privacy. And you remember the challenges then with WorldCoin was on data privacy. And the challenges that were there in where are you taking these data that you're collecting, including the things we're getting from people's eyes. And a lot of private data, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, such issues, challenges with data privacy, cybersecurity risks, fraud, and what are outright scams, because a lot of Kenyans, again, have been scammed, being told we are selling you Bitcoins. Some that are just Ponzi games that are sponsored by innovative people in the fraud industry, because also fraud is a very huge industry, Honorable Speaker. And you know, many of those people, including some, Honorable Speaker, who are in our space, who are involved in what has been christened wash. The wash industry, Honorable Speaker, you know, was a very big industry and has been a big industry. And these people are now graduating in their wash business into the virtual assets industry, Honorable Speaker, and scamming very many Kenyans, and especially those who are after a quick shilling or a quick buck, get scammed, Honorable Speaker. And it's therefore important that we have a legal and regulatory framework that relates to the use of virtual assets and related activities in the country, so that we stem this fraud, the challenges on data privacy, fraud, and cyber security risks, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in December 2015, the Central Bank of Kenya issued a public notice cautioning the public against virtual currencies such as Bitcoin, citing the risks in operating in an unregulated environment. The notice highlighted concerns around the lack of legal protections, potential misuse of money laundering and terrorism financing, and the speculative nature of these assets due to their lack of underlying value, any underlying value. Consequently, Honorable Speaker, the Central Bank of Kenya prohibited all financial institutions from engaging in or facilitating virtual currency transactions through CBK's Banking Circular number 14 of 2015. Honorable Speaker, when I speak about the lack of a regulatory and legal framework, these are challenges that we have lived with. That it took the Central Bank of Kenya through that legal notice, their circular number 14 of 2015, to caution financial institutions from engaging in virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. But truth is, we cannot function in isolation of the rest of the world. These virtual assets are today's reality, Honorable Speaker, and as the chair has said in moving, if M-Pesa some years back was the innovation of the time, then these virtual assets today are innovations that we must be able to live with and create a legal and regulatory framework that will now govern how do financial institutions in our country deal with the virtual assets and their transacting virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. As I said, because these assets have no underlying value. It's not like a piece of land or a car that you can send a valuer to value and tell you this asset is valued for this much, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, it leads to a lot of speculative industry or speculative habits, Honorable Speaker, that can quickly move the value of a virtual asset from $1 to thousands of dollars, Honorable Speaker, with nothing underlying. And therefore, if there is no legal and regulatory framework on how even financial institutions will deal with these issues, Honorable Speaker, then we will leave Kenyans exposed. And that is why it has become imperative that we have a regulatory and legal framework that we can use as a country. And it's in this backdrop, Honorable Speaker, that the National Treasury in January of 2025 published the draft national policy on virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. And this policy, Honorable Speaker, lays out a national vision for a secure, inclusive, and innovative digital asset economy. It calls for a coordinated regulatory framework led by the Central Bank of Kenya, the Capital Markets Authority, the Competition Authority, and is grounded on a public-private collaboration, Honorable Speaker, because again, bearing in mind that many of these virtual assets are not assets that are being traded by government or regulated by government in the trade area. But it will call on a multi-pronged approach, Honorable Speaker, where you have the Capital Markets Authority, the Communication Authority, the Competition Authority of Kenya, and also the Capital Markets Authority to have a legal framework and a regulatory one that will then anchor this policy into law. And that is what this bill seeks to do. Therefore, the bill that we have before us, Honorable Speaker, is directly implementing this policy, aiming to bring clarity to operators, protection of consumers, and credibility to Kenya's digital finance ecosystem, as I said, to stem the abuse that has been there. Honorable Speaker, I do not want to go into all the details of the bill because the chair has clearly elaborated on what is provided for in this bill, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, allow me to draw members' attention to Part 2 of this bill, which designates the Capital Markets Authority, the Central Bank of Kenya, and any other public body approved by the Cabinet Secretary as the relevant regulatory bodies, which will now be mandated to license the virtual asset service providers and regulate, supervise, and monitor promoters of virtual assets those offering virtual assets, Honorable Speaker. Part 3, Honorable Speaker, also creates a system or provides for a system where there will be mandatory licensing of persons and businesses by the relevant regulatory authorities under the Act, whether it is the Central Bank of Kenya, Honorable Speaker, the Capital Markets Authority, or any other relevant regulatory body that you have to license persons. So that, Honorable Speaker, will stem the culture that has been there. I have seen young people who have just finished college, Honorable Speaker, purporting to sell virtual assets and trade in them. But nobody was regulating them. Those that are doing online marketing of these things, and you know, because they are very tech savvy and very good in digital marketing online, they are able to rope in very many people within a very quick period, collect a lot of money from people, then within a short time, the whole thing collapses, and Kenyans innocently lose their money. And Kenyans have been accusing government, asking government, what have you been doing? Honorable Speaker, this is what government is doing now to make sure that there is a legal framework. You know who ought, if you are trading, for instance, in Forex, because there are many people dealing with Forex trading online and are not licensed by anybody, Honorable Speaker, that you need to be under some regulatory framework. For instance, those trading in Forex are under the regulation of CBK. Those, again, who are dealing with equities, again, they will fall under the Capital Markets Authority or whichever other relevant regulatory body, Honorable Speaker, that will be there. Honorable Speaker, to protect consumers, the bill in Part 4 requires that the virtual asset service providers must maintain adequate safeguards for client assets and obtain appropriate insurance cover. This will ensure that in the event of fraud or operational failure, consumers can receive compensation. And additionally, Honorable Speaker, the virtual asset service providers must also maintain a bank account in Kenya, enabling effective monitoring and oversight. Honorable Speaker, many of the challenges that Kenyans have encountered is, as I said, because of their lack of regulatory framework, it was not clear whether if you send somebody money to purchase a virtual asset, is there a way that in case you wanted to get back your money, you can get it back? And before this bill or before this policy was enacted, there wasn't a framework, Honorable Speaker. And this is what this Part 4 of the bill seeks to do. First, to ensure that there are adequate safeguards. Just like in the insurance industry, Honorable Speaker, there is a premium holders compensation fund. that is a safeguard for premium insurance premium holders, that in case that insurance